lesson. Hello and welcome to lesson number 4. I'm so glad that you guys have joined me tonight. So this lesson is on planning and cooking meals. Now, all of us know how to feed ourselves, obviously, or we wouldn't still be alive. So that is not necessarily what we're going to talk about. This is not going to be a this is how you cook type of lesson. It's more of how to make a plan and execute your meals so that you have a system that works for you instead of you having to go to a lot of extra effort. So hopefully some things that we have to say today will help you in your homemaking. It's going to be probably a shorter class. There's not as much to say unless I start talking way too much, which can happen. So we will see how this goes, but guaranteed we will be done in an hour at the very latest, but probably shorter than that today. All right, so last time we all met together. So the last lesson, lesson number 3, was just a video, and it was about cleaning and efficient cleaning systems. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that, I would encourage you to find some time to watch it. Did anyone get a chance to watch it? It's fine if you didn't. It's okay.
We haven't had time yet.
That's fine. I know I got it out kind of late. So I don't expect you to have watched it before now, but just know that it's there for you whenever you're ready. And hopefully it will give you some tips and some new ideas about having some cleaning systems. I did a lot of study on this, of course, in my own homemaking for almost 30 years, but also studying how hotels and vacation rentals do their cleaning and how to be efficient like they are, because they get a whole lot done in that arena. All right, so does anyone have any experiences you want to share about our last class when we met together, which was about planning by the week? Did anybody get an assignment done of making different days focused on certain things? Oh yes, go ahead, Amanda.
So, well, let me unraise my hand. So I was feeling down about the what would you say, the assignment, because me being still feeling the effects of morning sickness, it's like I can't do jack. But then I sat down and I was telling Heavenly Father about this, and I had the impression, I got out my journal and wrote down those impressions, and some things are clean, or like simply like everyday clean, like pick up 5 things or pick up 10 things, start with that. And
I love it.
Another thing was, one day out of the week, do something for the girls, and then I found, I was inspired by writing a list of things that I could do that wouldn't be too strenuous, that I could do.
Good idea.
Girls felt acknowledged, included in and stuff. And so that, it's small, it was simple, but I tried it, a bit of it last week, and that was life-changing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. Yes, we should start simple. I think that's a great point, Amanda, aka Elizabeth, here on our video, but her real name is Amanda. Anybody else have an experience they want to share? That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Nobody else? Nobody else? Okay. Well, that is great. I think that is such a good point, that even just doing little simple things, that it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be a huge plan. That is such a great thing to remember. Thank you so much. Okay. So does anyone have any other comments or things or questions maybe about planning by the week?
I'll jump in and just add something that I was researching over the weekend.
Great, thanks, Mike.
So So yeah, I won't get too wordy with this. It's related, but it wasn't directly related to planning by the week. But it was about establishing habits, and so I felt like one of the weaknesses I had is actually how do you establish that weekly routine and create that habit. And so I'm reading a book about habits. It's called The Power of Habit, and they talk a lot about what a trigger or a cue is, and then what a response is, and then what that reward system is. So that's how habits begin, right? You have something that cues you to do that. So either something physiological or environmental. So you see something, like you see an advertisement for McDonald's and you like start getting really hungry, or you wake up in the morning and the first thing that you see is that pair of shoes and it reminds you to go running in the morning. So part of building that schedule is also trying to incorporate some of these cues, and then at the end trying to create this award system so you feel that fulfillment. And so as you see these responses, not responses, excuse me, as you see these cues, you can alter your response. So if you have bad habits, you still have your cues, right? You still have the screaming child that you like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get really angry, but you change that response, and then you build that reward system, and then that's part of that changing your habits. So as I've tried to think about is, how do I schedule better? Well, what can I do to create these schedule habits that I can create, so that when I get cued to either leave that schedule or do something that I didn't necessarily want to do, like get angry with my child, how do I build that reward system in there so that I can have that fulfillment and change my routine so that my routine weekly can be more productive. Anyway, so I thought I'd add that.
I love that. So what kind of rewards do you do?
Food.
Uh,
Okay. So, and that's not always the healthiest choice. So,
but it is definitely a possibility.
sure. But, you allow yourself to have that fulfillment. So like, for example, if you want to incorporate reading your scriptures, we're always going to have the cues. We're always going to wake up. We're always going to run through a certain set of routines, and either physically your body gets hungry, or your chemistry, or you actually see or do things that trigger. You can actually build in that desire to read your scriptures, and then when you're done, give yourself that opportunity to feel fulfillment by rewarding. Like, I'm going to go out for a walk because that's really fulfilling, and have that reward system base set up so that you can, and then if you do that long enough, what you do is you ingrain that so deep, then you start to form what's called a craving. So, as they've researched this with other, they've researched it with animals. And if you take that, away, and that reward system away, you can kind of get cranky. So anyway, that's something I was thinking about. How do I incorporate schedules and create habits? So
I love that. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. You know, it is just kind of being mindful. It almost doesn't even matter. You can follow the assignments that I give you, or maybe that'll, excuse me, inspire you to with different resources. But it's really just being mindful and making a change. And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be small little steps. And I love both of those points. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so what we're going to talk about first with meals. And I don't know why I wanted to start with this, but I guess it's on my mind because it's autumn, the weather's changing a bit, it's getting a little colder. And I know at our house, especially, we raised our family for 15 years in the Phoenix metro area. And if you've ever been there, you know that it is extremely hot in the summer. So even though we had the air conditioner going all the time, day and night, it's still, you want to avoid getting your house hot. And so every summer, this is what started it for us. Every summer we would change our menu. Or spring in Arizona, around about April, it just starts to get a little hot. So we would change our menus. We had 2 sets of meals that we kind of worked through. And one set of meals was just for when it didn't matter if we heated up the house, right? So that's, the autumn and winter months when we could bake things. We could cook casseroles in the oven, and it wasn't a big deal. It didn't change anything. It was just, and if anything, it was comfort food. So we also listed soups in that because that's another, when you're cooler outside or cold, especially here, and now we live in the frozen north. There's just some comfort foods that you want after a cold day. And so what we did is we split up all of our dishes. We sat down and we made a list, my husband and I together. And my husband is a very good cook. In fact, he's a much better cook than me, and he really enjoys cooking. But we just sat down and we said, okay, first of all, what does our family eat? And so we made a list, and then we divided them into 2 categories of cooler weather and warmer weather, or you could say autumn, winter, spring, summer. And this was the start of just kind of the basis and where we began. And then it moved on to more specific planning. But this is just an idea, but I know for us, it is kind of nice. And especially if you live in a place that's hot in the summer that maybe you don't have air conditioning. More and more people have air conditioning these days, but if ever you know what it's like at the end of a long day, do you want to cook anything in the oven? Absolutely not, right? So we sat down and we wrote out the foods that we like to make and how we could make them without an oven. So things that we included were stovetop dishes, there's stovetop skillets, things like that. Slow cooker dishes were some things that we often used. Pressure cooker is something my husband really likes to use right now, and he uses it frequently. It kind of scares me, I'll be honest. I'm a little nervous about him. But since I don't cook that much anymore right now at this season of our lives, he uses it and he really enjoys that. Another thing you can consider in the warmer months is I know a lot of people like to cook outside on a grill, and that's another option. In Arizona, we actually didn't do that much because it was so hot we didn't want to be outside. But anyway, in the north, that's another issue. So along with that, then most people have either a set of cookbooks or maybe your own cookbook. I really like to have my own, and I'm going to talk about that throughout. And it's just, I got this, I think, in the dollar area, like for $3 at Target one time a few years ago. And I have, oh, it's dirty because we use it a lot. So I have some recipes that I copied over the years. You can see little people wrote their names. Oh, look, it's correct this way. It's actually backwards in the book. But these are recipes. I got this from my grandmother. I have used this since this child that wrote his name here is now 25. So this is old. This book also came with some recipe pages that you could copy recipes in. And so I've done some of that as well. I like this because it's just, there's some favorite recipes. I think we all have certain recipes we go back to again and again. And I like having them in one place. I still have a lot of updating to do. So I do have a box in my kitchen that says unsorted recipes that sometimes we have to dig through. But so this is constantly being updated, and it's just a fun idea. It's just a fun idea. It's not something you have to do. You can also use Google Docs or other cloud services. I know for a long time, I blogged for 10 years, and I would put recipes on there frequently. Now there's a long-standing joke about people that put their recipes on the internet and they have to tell their life story before they actually give you the recipe. But there's actually some really good recipes online. Pinterest is one of my favorite places to look for a recipe because it doesn't open the whole wide world. It's just recipes that people have pinned, which means they either have used them or they're really interested in using them. And so that's another place. Something my husband does to keep our recipes, his recipes specifically, because he's a very creative cooker, I guess you could say, cook. He has a website, and he is a programmer, web programmer, so he knows how to do this. But there are other services like Weebly, or anyway, there's several different ones you could do, WordPress, different websites if you're into that kind of thing. And he just will put up the recipe that he just made up on that website. And he likes that better because people will frequently ask him for his recipes, and then he can just send them to that website. And so that's another option. So gathering the recipes that you like to use, that you use in your family, thinking through the meals that you use and frequently eat in your family, just takes one less step out of your, oh, I don't know what to have for dinner. So I think gathering these things and kind of creating a system, this is something you can do, especially if you have time at home. I know I've gathered mine over the years. My kids will try recipes, and we'll get into that about kids cooking a little later. And they have books, and we're going to talk about that too. So just finding a place to store them, whether it's a physical copy, or in fact, I'm going to share this. This is a mess. My daughter will recognize this. For several years, I put together these cards, and I would print them out and put them on cardstock and then laminate them and put them on a ring here, because I had children learning to cook. And this was the easiest way for them to find the recipes that we used all the time. And I'm going to talk about this a little more, but this is kind of an easy way. There's also the boxes, recipe boxes that people use, of course, old school stuff. So just do what's easy for you and what works best for you and what you know you'll go back to. So just find a system to keep your recipes in, even if it's just in Google Docs, which can be the easiest. And it's an easy way to share recipes too. Okay, so the next point is to plan your menu. So now you know what your family eats and what you, or maybe some recipes you want to try, you can put those in there as well. And I'll talk about this a little later too, but recipes from family, maybe that favorite salad that your grandma always made at every family reunion, you want to have that in there. You may need to call someone to get that. Those are important things. We're going to talk about that a little later. Okay, so menu planning. One thing that helped me plan my menu is that because there's so many things you could make, and how do you choose? Again, decision fatigue, right? As we've talked about several times. One thing that I would do is I sat down and I said, okay, I need to make my life easier. And so I'm going to go with a theme for every night of the week for dinners. Now we're going to talk about breakfasts and lunches, but I'm going to start with dinner here. So Monday, I decided, and this was at, this was probably 10 years ago. This was at a point in my life, I took it from my blog. So this is why I have it written down. Mondays, I would do some kind of Mexican food. And we lived in Arizona, so we ate a lot of Mexican food. It's still one of our family favorites, and it's something we go back to again and again. So then Tuesday night, I designated as pork or chicken night. And again, this is just to simplify things so that when I go to make my menu for that week, this is already all planned out, okay? So this is kind of a macro planning. Then on Wednesdays, because we were always so busy on Wednesdays at the time, I would plan something for my slow cooker. So I knew, because I was going to be gone quite late into the afternoon, that I wanted to get up in the morning and put something in my slow cooker. And so when we got home that night, we could just sit down and eat, and that would really help us. So that's something you could do. Thursday nights at the time, I planned a rice dish. So whether that's some kind of casserole, or it could be Chinese food or Indian food or whatever, that was what we did. It just helped me in planning. I knew Thursday we were going to have rice and something to go with it. So then Fridays I planned as pasta nights, and then Saturdays as casserole or a soup, and Sundays is something simple. I do have to say, in our family, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but we often have just popcorn on Sunday nights, because we usually have a larger family meal in the middle of the day where we invite our adult children to come home and eat with us. It's not every Sunday, but because of that, it's just kind of Sunday evening, we just want something really easy. So we'll often do leftovers or simple dishes. Now, I will say on our current schedule, which my husband makes our current menu. We have a night at least once a week, whether that's a Sunday night or another night that's just leftovers. And that is very helpful. We usually have a variety of things left over in our fridge. And so our kids can choose from that. Although I will add here that it's become the norm in our family that my kids like to make ramen noodles for their leftover. Okay. Usually it's an, Mom, can I have leftovers? I don't really care, whatever. So that's something we keep in stock in our family. So I guess they kind of consider it a leftover. It is not my favorite choice for them because it's not very nutritious, but if that's what they choose. So you could do that as part of, anyway, leftovers is a big deal at our house and it is very helpful for all our busy schedules. Okay, so we talked earlier about that list of foods that our family eats. And we go back to this. So we have our list, foods that our family eats. Then we also have our weeknight themes that you can use. Then something that we have done that I feel simplifies our meals so much. And you may have to change this up now and then because I know in our family, sometimes we get kids that get tired of things. But what we do in our home is we do the same thing for breakfasts and lunches every week. So we might, let me look at our list right now. On Sunday morning, every Sunday morning is cereal in our family. Then every Monday morning, somebody makes pancakes. Every Tuesday morning, someone makes eggs. Wednesday morning, we go back to cereal again. Thursday morning, someone makes breakfast burritos. And Friday morning, someone makes waffles. And we actually get the frozen ones. So don't be too impressed. We used to make them from scratch, as my daughter, who's in this class right now, can attest. Every morning, we rarely had cereal at the time because I was home and we had a very large family. We couldn't really afford cereal at the time. It can get expensive. But because of our life right now, that's where we are. So we are back to cereal and frozen waffles, just as a side note there. And then on Saturday morning, because we have more time, someone will make muffins. So this same menu we've done for, a few months. I think we change it up every quarter or something, every 3 months or so. And you'll notice that these are broad categories. So within this, there's different choices. It's not exactly the same thing. I think we alternate the waffles or breakfast burritos with what we call as an egg bake or an egg casserole that we make. I think we're having breakfast burritos. We usually have them on Friday, or we call it egg bake on Fridays. But because it's our daughter's birthday tomorrow, that's why she chose to have that for her breakfast on her birthday. So that's what we're doing. Then for lunch, we might have on Sundays, like I said, as a family dinner, we might do a potluck, or we'll sometimes say this is a soup theme, which is what we had this last Sunday, or we might do sandwiches, or we frequently do nachos, or like a potato bar. So something that works for a crowd is what we do on Sunday lunches. Then Mondays, we do cheese crisps, which are kind of like quesadillas. Then Tuesdays, we do macaroni and cheese. Wednesdays, it's sandwiches, and that alternates between ham sandwiches or peanut butter and jelly. Thursdays, we alternate, usually it's some kind of hot dog deal. Like I said, this isn't the healthiest, okay? I never said this was super healthy. I eat differently from my family, just as a side note, I make my own meals. And then Friday again is sandwiches. Simplify. But one day it might be ham sandwiches, the other day it might be tuna sandwiches or whatever. Then on Saturdays again, we have hot dogs. So I don't know, maybe we've switched things around. Sometimes we do spaghetti for a lunch, or we might include ramen for a lunch. And then every week the dinners are different. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how we sit down. So then we sit down. We also have decided in our family, we change up our menu we do a menu every week. So my husband creates a new menu every Friday night so that he can go shopping on Saturday morning. Again, this is just how we do things in our house. There was quite a long time when I did the menu and I did the shopping. It's just the dynamic of our family right now and how things are working best for us. So your mileage may vary, as with anything, but the point is to have a plan, a menu that you know for that week what you're going to eat. And if you can do this, say on a weekend when you have a few, maybe a little bit of extra hours, that you can sit down and do it. Honestly, once you get your system going, it doesn't take that long. We put our menu, you can see the spreadsheet here that we print out. I'm sorry, I know it's backwards, but we do this on Google Docs on a spreadsheet. My husband will work on it. He will frequently tell me, would you take a look at the menu and see if there's anything we need to change or if you had any different plans? Then we can talk about that. We always have the date so our children know, because as we'll talk about, they are heavily involved in this process. I would say for a time, my children made probably 80% of the meals. Now they make about 90% of the meals, maybe even more. My husband still likes to cook, so he puts himself on here frequently. I rarely cook right now just because of how busy I am. So, all right. You decide when you're going to stick to the plan and when you're going to change it. Personally, I find sticking to the plan the easiest thing, because then you have less input from the peanut gallery. Because as soon as you change things or so-and-so says, but I don't want this, then you get a whole domino effect. Well, can I have this? Can I have this? Now that happens. Okay, it happens, and it's going to happen in your family. It happens frequently in mine. But to me, I usually try and get them to stick to the plan. One alternate thing that we do allow in our family, because we have had some majorly picky eaters in our family. As my daughter-in-law, who is in this class, can attest, her husband, my oldest son, was our pickiest eater. And I think he only survived on glasses of milk and toast like his whole life. He was so picky. But he was okay. He was fine. He's not so picky now, which is a blessing for her, I hope. But we do always say that our children can have toast. If they don't like what's for dinner or for whatever meal, they can always have toast. And some will pick that. And we just take a deep breath and decide to be okay with that, right? It's fun to try new dishes and schedule them in. This is a way to get those new dishes you keep planning on trying, is to put them on the menu and try them. Now, we have had weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth at our house with some of the dishes we have tried. Some have been successes. Some have not been such great successes. Some have been, okay, we're never going to make that again. I'm sure you have the same thing in your family. So the power of a menu and the importance of a menu is not just to have this on your computer, but to make it visual where people can see it. Because even though I am rarely at home, my daughter will frequently ask me, my baby, Mama, what's for dinner? Now she can read. Okay, she's 7. And so she can read now. And so we frequently say, have you looked at the menu? And that's a great help. The other thing about having it where people can find it and read it and in print, for some reason, and I said this in the last video about cleaning, for some reason, when you put something in print, you don't argue with it, or rarely do children argue with it. It's like the law of the land. If it's on the menu, it's what's for dinner. It is so great. I don't know what it is, but I do that with chore charts too in our family and with our menu. And you can see we have people assigned on different meals. We also have dishes assignments. So if it's printed here, they know what it is. They know what to expect. They could look at it in the morning. If you have an organized person that cooks, they can look at it in the morning. They can think through, I'm going to get this out. I'm going to defrost it now, or whatever else that is. It's just, you have this on your fridge or wherever you put things, and then you know exactly what the plan is for your week. Now, you could do this every 2 weeks. We've done that before. I've even near the end of a pregnancy done it for an entire month. That doesn't happen very often, but you can do it however you want to do it. Make it as simple or as complex as you want to for your situation. Okay, now grocery shopping. I have some opinions about this. I really feel that it helps to have a system where you have a scheduled day and time when you do this. Now, it doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to say the world will end if I don't get out the door by 8 a.m. However, I know for us, and this was when I was shopping and also now that my husband is shopping, we go to a place that is very crowded, especially around mealtime or especially on Saturdays, on weekends. So we have decided that my husband likes to go first thing on a Saturday morning. Now, there's trade-offs for this. There's not as many people in the store, but there's also people in the aisles stocking shelves. So you have to pick your poison. I think that this is helpful because it makes it so you don't make as many poor food choices. If you go shopping on a certain day and it's not, say, at 6 o'clock at night when you're hungry and you need something right now, you might just spend more money at the deli or something like that. Whereas if you plan ahead, then you've already made the choices. You don't have to make the choices when you're standing in the store. You already made it. It's already done. That decision is over and you can just go in and make your purchases and get out. It also saves on whining. I have that in my notes because then you don't have empty shelves in your house with your family going, when are you going to go grocery shopping? We've been out of bread for 3 days or whatever it is. You have a system. You have practiced this. You know when it is. Now, it also just helps the rhythm of your life and your family. Everybody in your house knows that on such and such day, the pantry is going to be filled again. We can make do until then with what we've got, right? You could even adjust things on your menu if you have to, though if you've planned ahead, you usually have what you need. Okay, so shopping with a list is another part of this. It makes your process faster, as we talked about, and helps you avoid impulse buying. I also want to make a note about this because I know my daughter-in-law that's here in this class and many people I know really love the option for the grocery pickup or even a grocery delivery. I haven't done it before. It's not one of the things that, at least not right now, that I'm big on. But I know it is a blessing to many families. But that's why having a list helps this. Instead of doing this several times, you can just have your list, then you go to your computer, you can put in your order or your app on your phone, and you know what you're going to get and what you need, and that helps you save money and time. So that's another option. If you haven't considered it, but you're a really busy person and you think, maybe it's time, it might be a good thing to try, but you'll need a list so that it can help that process go easier. Again, the decision fatigue and all of that. Okay, now we're going to move on to the part about delegating cooking. And I know not everyone has helpers at their house. When my kids were little, I was the only one. And my husband, like I said, he likes to cook, but he would frequently come home from a long day at work tired, and I was a stay-at-home mom, so I did the cooking. Now, I remember when I started, I decided there were many reasons that I wanted my children to learn to cook. First, I felt like it was my duty as a parent. Now, we homeschool, and I know not everyone does, but even in a public school situation, home economics classes are rarely taught, if ever at all anymore. And so it wasn't something that they could go to school and learn. I knew that I needed to teach them. And the reason I wanted to teach them was, one, so that I just wanted them to know how to feed themselves. That was important to me. And two, I wanted them to leave my house knowing how to feed themselves and others. It also helped me and it helped our whole family. And they would gain these skills and feel that they were contributing. And I know we've talked about that quite a lot in other classes, so I won't beleaguer that point. But when you're teaching children how to cook, the idea to keep in your mind is that you are training. Now, if you've ever trained someone at a job, when someone or been trained, you know that you don't know everything. you're starting from zero, right? You're starting with a blank slate, and you need some time and understanding to be able to figure these things out. Now, when we're teaching our children how to cook, we need to remember they don't know how to do this. They may have even watched us in the kitchen, but they don't really know how to do this. So remember, you're just training. You're not expecting perfection. We started in our family with simple lunches. This is what I do with all my children, or even breakfast. If you do cereal, that's a great meal to start with. So if you have your 3-year-old can get cereal out and put it on the table or the counter or wherever you put your cereal. They can get out the bowls. Now, this is probably going to take some time and some prodding and some patience. Okay, now let's get out the bowls. Okay, let's get out the spoons. How many spoons are we going to need? You've got a math lesson right there, right? To your little people. Remember, they love to help. Remember when we talked about that? This is a great way that they can help. And it's really fun to see how they take ownership of it. I know our youngest, it's my day to get the cereal out, but nobody better get up before them and get the cereal out. It's their job. It's on the menu. It says so. I am in charge of the cereal on this day, right there, right? So it's great. They feel like they're contributing, and it's a good beginning. We also, they could do toast or those frozen waffles we talked about. Think of some simple meals that your children can do and start there. So I like to start either breakfast or lunch, because children can also pull out the fixings for sandwiches. So when you're making your assignments, put your youngest children, or the ones first learning, I should say. In my family's youngest children, but your ones first learning, put them on the simplest meals. Make sure there are simple meals on your menu. Leftovers is a simple meal. My 5-year-old can get in the fridge and pull all the things out. It's a great time for mom to kind of inspect things and throw things out if they're expired past their due date. So that's a great way to start. Then I move them on to a little more complex dishes, not hugely complex, but like I said, we do some quesadilla type dishes. That's easy. Now they have to work with a hot griddle, so they have to be big enough to be able to do that. But that's usually around 8 or 9. They can handle that. And so I teach them how to use it. Here's the key. You do have to teach. You can't expect them to just do it. You do have to show them, okay, you're going to need to bring this out, and you may need to show them more than once. So just be patient and train, train, train. Okay, then as my kids get about teenager age, and usually about 14 or older, although some dishes 12-year-olds can do, I have them start doing dinners. Now you start, again, like anything else, with the simple, and then they can move up. Say you have a 12-year-old that really wants to learn to cook, but maybe they're not ready for, jambalaya or something. That's a bigger dish. So you might say, you know what, we are going to put you on macaroni and cheese, and you teach them how to make macaroni and cheese, and that's a lunch that they can be on. Then when they get 14, now they know how to make pasta, right? They know how to cook pasta on the stove and boil it. They know a few other things, like how to follow instructions, how to stir, and all of those things. So you can maybe start adding spaghetti, which is another simple dish. Teach them how to make the sauce that you use. If you use canned, that's an easy one. If you use canned sauce, you can just pull that out and teach them how to do that. Be careful not to overwhelm them and expect too much. Again, training and teaching. And that takes a little bit of time and effort, but it pays off in huge dividends for them, for your family, for their future spouses and homes and responsibilities. It's a great thing. Okay, I do start with only 1 or 2 dinners a week. It's not like, bam, they are 12 and they are in charge of dinner for 3 nights a week. No, you start with 1 dish they know how to do, you add it in, and slowly you add maybe a second night. And this takes months, okay, maybe even years. This is a slow process, and you don't want them to hate cooking. You want them to get success, experience success, and to have those kind of experiences that will help them know that they can do more. And it's a great feeling. You're empowering your children by doing this, and you're making your home life easier. Okay, so you assign the meals for different nights. And this is another place where we repeat. So just like we might have oatmeal every Monday morning, we also, so-and-so is always in charge of that. Now, you will want to rotate this after a while, but the reason we keep them on it for a few weeks or even a month is so that they get good at that dish. So then they have a success and they know how to make that. Then you can move them on to something else and then they can learn to make that. So that's our reason for assigning like that and for rotating, because you will get to a point where you will start to get complaints about, I always make pancakes on Thursday. I need to learn to do, I want to do something else. I'm tired of making pancakes. That's when you kind of know you got to switch things around. Okay. I do allow baking with supervision. This is a great thing for when kids are about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've always had some little bakers in our house. Now, there is a funny story, and bless her little heart, she's an excellent baker now. I just want to say that, and an excellent cook. But I have one of my older daughters that her first time, I just set her loose on a recipe. This was my mistake. It's my fault. I just set her loose. I didn't explain to her. Now, she didn't understand fractions yet. So you can see how this might be a problem. So she made some cookies. She was super excited. And she used 11 cups of sugar in these cookies. They were very interesting, to say the least. She just didn't know how to read fractions. So she didn't know that 1.5 cups was a thing. So be sure and educate your children. It certainly wasn't her fault. It was mine. But she learned. We all survived. 11 cups of sugar went down the tube, but you know what? Sugar's cheap. It was fine. It was good. Lesson learned. And it's something she and I have never forgotten. So supervise. Supervise, make sure they know how to follow the instructions on a recipe. Start with simple ones. And that's a great place because kids are often more motivated to bake because that usually means a treat. And so then they can get a success with that, and that can translate to future things. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about helping your kids build their own cookbooks. This has been something so fun in our family. And not only is it a fun thing that they enjoy, but it's practical. My older daughters and son, well, I don't think my boys, Morgan, our older boys didn't have cookbooks. That was a mistake on my part. But our older girls make a cookbook. Now, this one is several years old. This daughter is now 14, and you can tell this is her artwork from like age 7 or 8. And you can see it's falling apart. But what we do is when they find a recipe they like and that they know how to do, they print it out, they put it in here. Now, these don't have page protectors for a long time, and I think some of them in here do. We would put page protectors on them. You see, it still gets totally dirty. But they each have some of their favorite recipes in here. Now, we utilize this in our homeschool, and this is what our children did for their penmanship activities for a number of years. But as they learn a recipe, they put it in their book. If they have something they want to learn how to make, they put it in their book. And then when they get ready to leave our home and our family and venture off on their own, they have their books. They have those things. And frequently, even those that are the most diligent about it, they still call home and say, Mom, what's that recipe? And usually I say they want their dad's recipe. And I say, go to Dad's website. Remember, here's the website, and then they can print it off from there. But it's a great motivator. It's a practical application, and it's just a lot of fun. So it's just a suggestion. You don't have to do this, but it's just something fun that you can have along with the idea of assigning kids to do some meals. Now, I will say, when I was growing up, my mom signed me up for a 4-H class. Actually, she signed me up for a few, but one was in cooking. And I don't know if they do this anymore, and different areas have different things, but that was a fun class. And I even got to go and demonstrate a recipe, making a recipe at the county fair. And that was a real big booster for me. So there's all kinds of options. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube. You know that there are channels dedicated to cooking, and you can make this fun for your kids. You can make it a family project. you could spend one night and say, okay, we're gonna all put some cookbooks together and just do 1 or 2 recipes. Or if you have something on like a Google Docs, you could print out a few for each person, one for each person. You can put them in the books. So this is just making it fun and making it an adventure. So it's not just another chore that kids have to do. They will get tired of it. They will complain about it, but that's what we all do with chores, right? I mean, I do about, I don't want to cook tonight, right? So we all have our days. But when we have a plan, it makes things easier. Now I'm going to touch briefly just on heritage recipes. To me, I feel like this is an important part of family history. I love having many of my grandmother's recipes because these were dishes that we would always eat at family holiday parties, or when we would get together. And it reminds me of her. It's something I feel like I can hand down that she made that I can give to my children. And so I just want to mention that briefly, but I know that it's something that makes me happy to know that my mother used to make my grandma's busy day cake. And then I have made it for years, and I've taught my daughters and sons to make it. And that someday they're going to teach their children who, never got to meet Grandma Nielsen, but that they will have her recipe. And I just think that's a fun side note and a fun thing. Does anyone have any questions about or comments about planning a menu and shopping and having those systems for eating, for meals for your family? Yes, go ahead, Amanda.
Where do you find is the best, or I guess the overall cheapest place to go shopping for a small family when you were a small family?
Well, I know our family, we go to the cheapest place in our area, which for us is Winco. We've compared prices, and pretty much on everything it's cheaper. You can, now I don't know that they have the same services. So if you want a service of someone that delivers, I know for years before we had a Winco type place, back in the olden days, the turn of the century, in the early 2000s, we would go to Food for Less, which I don't know if it exists anymore. I know there's places in different parts of the country like Aldi's and other places that they have different prices. So regional is a thing. We do find that the Kroger-based grocery stores, we would go there when we lived in Arizona a lot. They had some good sales. So frequently, for a long time, we would shop the sales. We would go to the loss leaders, and it was more of a process. It was much more work and time, but we would go through all the ads and lay them out and say, okay, we're going to go here to get chicken, and we're going to go here to get canned foods, and we're going to go here to get this produce. And so you can do that. We've done that, but it was much more involved. Did you have another question, Amanda? I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Oh, it's okay. I can put it down. I just didn't want to leave you hanging. So, there's always a balance. If you want something a lot cheaper, sometimes it's more work. Or like I said, going to different places. I know there are some, my cousin used to call them train wreck stores. And we joke around that they're used food stores. Of course, they're not used food, but there's the discount type grocery stores. I know in our area, there's some new ones that you can go to. This is places where things are discontinued, or I don't think they're close to their due date. Sometimes they might be, but it's just a discounted grocery store. When we lived in Arizona, there was one called American Foods that we would go to. You just kind of have to ask around and look around. Those have some good deals often, but a lot of times we would find that most of the things they had there were more convenience foods, which at the time we didn't really use. We ate a lot of staples. So that's something to consider. Now, if you really need to just have a delivery or where you just pick it up, you might pay a little more for that kind of a thing. There are certain items I know we like in our family that we just really like. And so we spend a little more money and go to certain grocery store for a couple things. Or you might go to a big box store like Costco or Sam's Club, and you can find, maybe that's probably not the most economical for a small family. Actually, we found in our large family, we don't actually use that much either. So your mileage may vary. It's kind of up to you. So any other questions?
Yeah, I got one for you, Rachel. I don't want to make it sound personal and I ask you how you manage your own personal diet, but I guess I'm curious with what you got going for your busy schedule. I'm one of those two that would probably be interested in trying to make my own meals custom for me that would be separate from my family because I have different goals. Yeah, that's different. Yeah. So and that's fine. I just try not to be a burden on my family, but at the same time, how do I do it for myself? But what I'm not asking is you don't have to go into detail on what you
Fine.
eat.
It's fine. I actually, for 4 years now, I've eaten, you know, the method is called bright line eating. And so you can Google that and look it up. But I used to weigh almost 100 pounds more than I do now. And I'm committed to that. It's based on food addiction, and which I have a very bad food addiction. So that's what I've done. But I do plan ahead. Um, because of the way I eat, I weigh everything that I eat. And I know that that's not everybody wants to do that. That's just something I do. And so I have certain foods that I already kind of have my set foods. Like we talked about making a list of things you eat. I do that for me. And I have my own little menu plan. Lunches are often very difficult for me. Right now, due to COVID and just some stress of school, I've gained a little weight back. So I'm kind of trying to get back more on a weight loss plan. I actually eat 2 meals a day personally, just because I haven't had a lot of time to make lunches, or even if I make lunch, I don't have time to eat it because I have a full school schedule. This is not for everyone, and it's only for this certain time in my life right now. But when I eat 3 meals, I usually have to plan my meals for the week, and I actually will weigh them, put them in their containers, and put them in my fridge. We have a second fridge in our garage, and that's where I try and put my extra things. My husband, because he's a saint, and he usually makes a lot when he makes food, so he will set some aside for me, and then I can put those in a freezer. I can portion them out, put them in the freezer, and then I can just grab them out of the freezer and put them in my lunchbox for a day. So I do that too. But I do have to plan ahead, and it does take a little extra time. I have designated when I do lunches, I usually do them on Sunday afternoons or evenings, or Saturdays can work too, but I will do it for the whole week. And I know a lot of people that are busy and have busy schedules or have a strict diet restrictions, you know, you usually have to plan ahead. I wish there were a way around that. In a pinch, I can do a fast food salad, but there's usually not enough lettuce in them, and they're usually pretty expensive. So I don't do that a lot, but that's what I do.
Do you find that that creates any conflict while you're having your dinner and then the family's having theirs, or
Yeah,
have you found balance?
it especially at first it did, and we still get, I think that's why in our family we have some kids that go, but I don't want that, I don't want this, especially teenagers, and they can make themselves something. I don't have a good answer for it yet. I just know that for me, it's what I need to do for my own health, and well-being. And most of my kids are pretty used to it by now. Um, so, it is, what's interesting is it is, the way I eat is cheaper than the way my family eats. Um, I'm not all organic. I know for some people they go organic or vegan and that kind of thing, and that can get more expensive. But for me, because what I'm eating a lot of times it's raw vegetables or frozen vegetables, that I eat mostly vegetables. It's a lot cheaper than say, frozen waffles or that kind of thing. So I think it evens out. And my children have been some of my biggest supporters in my nutrition choices. They remember how hard it was for me and how tired I would get, and just they are they're very supportive, and so I appreciate that. And I do try and be open and honest and just said, you know what, your mom has a food addiction, and so I just need to do things a little differently. And I don't make my family eat with me, eat the way I do, that's totally their choice. And it's their, um, anyway, that would be really complicated, I think, to add that. But I do try and be open and honest and just explain. I am very addicted to certain foods, and so I have to remove those from my diet. So that's what I do. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that helps. Anyway, well, I went the full hour, you guys, but I warned you that I might. So I'm sorry if you made plans mentally to be done in half an hour, but I hope that you got maybe a few ideas. Again, just a reminder, this is how you should do things. These are just some ideas. You can take them or leave them. And hopefully you'll find some ideas that might help your family and make your life easier and help you have some systems that will assist you and your family in having some better meal times and a more positive experience with your meals and shopping. So no one else has any questions? We can end it now. Thank you so much for attending. I am loving this series and I really appreciate you being my students. So have a good night.